welcome back to another episode of Figuring Out Epilepsy. Today we have a very special guest, Trevor Gordon from the Epilepsy Shop. Hey Trevor, how are you doing?
Thanks. How are you doing? Thanks for the opportunity of this.
I'm good. Thank you. No problem. I'm really excited to talk to you. We've worked a little bit here and there. I'm actually wearing one of your shirts. I don't know if you can see it, but
And I can. That's awesome. And shout out to you. I've been watching your content, your social media evolve, and it's just exciting to watch. And I'm always rooting for individuals like yourself that create epilepsy awareness. More people like yourself need to do this, and I think you're inspiring so many people by what you're doing. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, let's go ahead and get started with we want to kind of talk about was Marcus Charles and that whole situation. Do you know, have you heard from him or have you talked to him?
I talked to him, I'd say a month or two ago, because we issued out a press release recently giving an update on our petition, and he was quite grateful for all the 5,000 plus that signed that petition, and we've connected him to some media opportunities. I think he's still overwhelmed with this situation. And as a reminder to your viewers, like he's waiting to go to court. He's been charged. Like, so it's not just the fact this man was tased. That's a horrible situation as that alone. But it's also the fact that he was charged with multiple counts of assault. So he's actually waiting to go to court.
I thought they would have dropped that. So what we're talking about is, I can add a link below so you can see so everyone can see the full video. So Marcus Charles was at his shift one Sunday afternoon and he had a seizure. And then as one is, they're disoriented. He was walking around disoriented, not knowing what's going on. The police come, they tase him, they're very forceful with him. He ends up with, I believe I read, injuries with his wrists, his arms, his face. He was just so beaten up. And you said he was charged with assault as well. I thought they would have dropped that though.
I mean, that's the hope, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I don't know the situation. The hope is that hopefully the charges are dropped, but it's going to go to a court and it's going to be discussed. And I don't know. Like every time I talk about this situation, it gets me so angry. I work in an epilepsy organization. I see seizures every day. I might be more comfortable seeing a seizure than the average person, but you still don't get 100% desensitized to it. But that being said, I mean, with my job, it comes with the territory. If someone has a seizure in front of me, I make sure I push couches out of the way, chairs out of the way. If I can put a blanket or a pillow underneath someone's head. Have I been kicked in places I don't want to be kicked because I'm helping keep the situation safe? Sure. But then I lash out at the person because of it? No. So if I can show that comfort or that restraint, then you would think a police officer or a paramedic would have that same restraint.
Yeah, and I mean, they really should be trained properly because they are helping and because epilepsy is so common. In Canada, I believe it's a 1 in every 100 person that will develop epilepsy. So, yeah. I mean, I feel
over
like
3,000 I apologize. Over 300,000 Canadians have epilepsy. Yeah. I mean, we work with the Epilepsy Foundation in the U.S. and I know they have similar stats. And it's just the fact we like to say that it might be a hidden disease, but it's not a rare disease. It might
Exactly.
be a disease that's not spoken about as much as we want it to be spoken about, but it doesn't make it rare.
Has this happened before? Because this is honestly the first time I've heard of something like this happening.
You would hope that this is an isolated incident, but it's happened
It's
in
not.
many parts of Canada. I had a good chat with the CEO of the Epilepsy Foundation in the U.S. and Beatrice, and she told me that she's been hearing about this happening in the U.S. as well. So this is not an isolated incident. It's been happening many times all over North America. It's
Mhm.
police training needs to happen. And the
Yeah.
frustration for us here in Canada is that there is a police training that exists. It's in their portal. It's just, unfortunately, it's not a mandatory course. So,
Oh.
yeah,
Oh, okay. No, it needs to be mandatory, especially if you're going to be out there and you're supposed to be protecting the community. And if you can't even help someone who's having a seizure, you think that they're being violent or they're being, not cooperative. I mean, we can't help that. I have epilepsy myself, and we can't help the fact that we do certain things during that time.
can I ask you a question? I'll turn the tables. You're a person living with epilepsy. When you leave your home, like, do you think about that? Like reading these stories that happened to Marcus. Do you think
Now I
about that at
do.
all? Does that bring fear to you that you can't even leave your home without the thought of potentially someone being confused and lashing out? Like,
Now I do. I think about that a lot, actually. Um, the most concerning thing for me is just having someone know where I am at all times, what my plans are before I leave the house. And, I'm 33 years old, but I still technically live with my mom. I live in her garage, and I tell her whenever I leave the house, "Oh, I'm going to work. Oh, I'm going to go run some errands. I'm going to be here, here, and here." I let my mom know every step of the way. So just in case I have a seizure and something happens to me, she knows where to go to look. And I think that's really important for people and our safety who have epilepsy.
it's just frustrating, this story, because even if the paramedics and the police did nothing, that still would have been better support
Yeah.
than what happened.
Did
So
the
it's the fact that, like, yeah.
did the police and the paramedics show up at the same time? Where were the paramedics?
So that's the part that's a little blurry, and I'll give the full disclaimer that I wasn't there, and I'm only going by the media reports and the witnesses that were there. But from the way that the story was told, was the paramedics were called, they showed up, and then for whatever reason, the police were called as well. But from my understanding, it was because the paramedics as well were confused and not sure what to do. And the police are the ones that seem to be getting focused on in a lot of these media reports, but the
Yeah.
paramedics weren't that much better. The paramedics didn't do anything in the sense of tasing, but the fact that they obviously ended up calling, it was them that I think, from my understanding, called the police. So it's just very confusing. Like, at the end
Y-
of the day, if someone has a seizure, I can understand why sometimes 911 gets called if someone doesn't know what's happening. Sometimes you do call 911, but the fact is, when someone's having a seizure, you're not holding the person down. You're not you're not being violent with someone that's having a seizure. So it's just quite confusing that they did all these things to sort of hold him down, so that, of course, I wasn't there, but obviously if you're feeling held down, you're gonna push away when you're having a seizure.
yeah.
I don't know.
But you would think the paramedics would know. Should I feel like they should know at least the most common seizures, what they look like and how to help that person. The fact that they had to call the police kind of shows like they're not prepared for that situation either.
Yeah. So this for sure. Again, that's why we're being careful with how what we're doing on our side. Like, we're treating this as a teachable moment. We're not
Yeah.
here to we're not here to uh, talk bad about police officers or paramedics. They have a hard job to do, but this was not the correct thing to do. This was not. So basically, when someone has a seizure, you don't hold them down. There's obviously over 40 different types of seizures. All seizures look differently, but no seizure is, do you hold someone down? And in this case, this person was held down and tased because of the moving around of this person. So that there's nowhere in the training of someone having a seizure does it say that you need to tase somebody to
Yeah.
hold them down. I was talking about this with a colleague. Can you imagine if this person had a VNS device
Yeah. I
and they
didn't
were
even think of
tased?
that.
That person could have died. It's just, again, there's police training sitting in their portal. I know Epilepsy Foundation in the US has police training in their portal. There's many things that are available for education for what to do if someone has a seizure. You should not be tased while you're having a seizure.
Yeah. And I I really think that this is why this is one of the reasons why epilepsy awareness is so important, because since I started posting on social media and started the podcast and everything, I've come across a lot of people who still believe that you should put something in their mouth, you should restrain them, all these things that, the Epilepsy Foundation and other people who post on social media are constantly telling those that don't have epilepsy or don't know anyone who has epilepsy, like, no, this is what you're actually supposed to do. And I think, you know, it's our job as people with epilepsy to talk about the proper way to care for us, because it keeps us safe. And I get it. I didn't talk about my epilepsy for 20 years. But I mean, when we start talking about epilepsy, we can change what people believe and how to properly care for those, our fellow warriors.
But don't put that on you. You're going to talk about it, and people are going to talk about it when they're ready. And it's awesome that you are doing it the way that you're doing it. And it's great that there are many epilepsy warriors and ambassadors out there. But it's also up to the government, whether it be in the U.S. or Canada, to fund epilepsy training, to fund epilepsy organizations, to create more education. That's great that people with epilepsy are wanting to take on that fight, and we're appreciative. But it's not just on those living with epilepsy to do that. Like, paramedics and police officers and public figures need to learn basic training. And it's not that it's not available. It's there, and it's just quite frustrating that people don't just do the basic research for it.
Yeah. And I'll also put the link to the petition down below if anyone wants to go ahead and sign that. So for the petition, it's really just about making the training mandatory. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you for that question. So basically, like, it's to draw attention to a fact that there's a course that's sitting in the police portal. So there's, we're talking about here in Canada, there's multiple police organizations across Canada, but they all have access to this one portal. And in that portal is this specific police training that actually you can read up about about the training on the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance website. But this course was actually designed by a police officer who has epilepsy.
Wow.
So it was actually designed by a police officer with working with the epilepsy, one of the epilepsy organizations, and it was put together and it's sitting in their portal, the police portal. But the problem is that it's not a mandatory course. Think about when we were in school, high school. What course? What assignments would you focus on? The ones that were mandatory or the ones that weren't mandatory? Of course, there was always the keener student that would do certain assignments for bonus credit, right? But
Yeah.
unless a course was actually mandatory, I don't think we all would focus on those courses.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing with this petition. We're trying to get people to draw attention that this course has to be mandatory.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a point there. We only focus on what's mandatory. I mean, I'm like a great example. I won't waste my time unless it's mandatory. But yeah,
Or you waited so
we definitely need to change that. And I think it goes for all. I had to explain to my dentist what to do if I were to have a seizure. I don't know if that's not part of their curriculum, but I feel like because it's so common, everyone should be trained with epilepsy, and it's not just for police officers. They're getting the heat right now because of what went down, but it should go for everyone, teachers as well, people who work at the school.
yeah. Yeah, it's just like I said, like it's just frustrating to me because, like, I mean, there's zero reason why this person should have been held down, let alone
Yeah.
tased.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what's frustrating, and then add to the fact that now he's charged with assault. So they
That
knew he has epilepsy. They know it was a seizure. They know it was not in his control. The person did not mean to, react.
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel so bad for Marcus Charles and his family. Like, to the fact that all that happened on top of being charged with assault. Like, it's just it's an unfortunate event that he has to go through. He shouldn't have to go through all this.
yeah. Just when you first read that story, what was the first thought that you had when you read it?
I thought that could have been me, or that could have been one of my friends that I met in the epilepsy community.
Oh,
Like, yeah, and I shouldn't have to say that. That's where I'm seeing it from, like, with someone who lives with epilepsy. I can't control what I do, and if that were to happen to me, I would be furious. I would be absolutely furious and upset, and I know my family would be too, as well.
mhm.
But as far as besides the petition, I know you work at an organization. You also have the Epilepsy Shop where you sell merchandise. And how did you get started on this path with helping those with epilepsy?
Well, so I've been in the epilepsy community for close to 8 years now. I work at a local agency called Epilepsy South Central Ontario, which then got me connected to the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance. And the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance is the umbrella of about 24 epilepsy organizations across Canada. The Canadian Epilepsy Alliance is members of the IBE, which is Epilepsy Foundation in the US, is connected. So we're this big happy family in the epilepsy community. And then, so basically, that's how I work with the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance. The Epilepsy Shop, that was inspired. We created that in November of 2020 because the reason why we started that was we found when we would Google epilepsy merchandise, and there's some good stuff out there, Etsy websites and different things like that. But what we also found were there were a lot of stores that would be selling merchandise, but it wasn't actually going to support clients that actually have epilepsy. So we wanted to create an online clothing store that you can buy merchandise in Canada and the US, where 100% of the proceeds actually keep programs and services free for clients that have epilepsy. Because we don't make a profit on that. It fully goes into programs and services for clients that have epilepsy. So that was the reason for it, and also we wanted to add more options. I love purple. I love purple, and you think about purple and epilepsy, that's our color. But also, people want other options. You're wearing a black shirt with
I'm
white,
wearing
and
a
I think
black
there might be
one.
a little. Yeah, you're wearing
There's
black, but there's a little purple there. Yeah, I see that. But it's to give
yeah.
people options. Some people might want a black sweatshirt as well, and I've seen there's yellow, there's green, there's multiple colors. But we want to give people options, and we want people that are buying epilepsy awareness shirts to feel cool in the merch, not just do it just because it's a great cause and it's a great organization and they want to create epilepsy awareness. But we want people feeling kind of cool too while they're wearing the merchandise,
Yeah, and what I really love about your shirts is that they're so comfortable and they're so soft. Like I'm a person that needs to have soft fabrics, and I just, as soon as I opened the package when I got it, I was like, yes, because some shirts can be a little stiff. Some shirts can be a little stiff, but not these ones. These ones are really nice, and I also like the fact that it's not only for those that have epilepsy, but their family as well. I love that because I always say epilepsy not only affects the person that has it, but their families, their loved ones, the people around them. So the fact that you guys include everyone around the person with epilepsy, I love that.
Oh, we appreciate that feedback, and that's exactly why we do it. And we want to, because again, epilepsy does affect the whole family. So we come up with shirts that are specifically designed for whoever in the family wants to get it. We also come
Yeah.
out with shirts that are also shirts that bring attention to the brain. We have shirts that are saying things like, "My brain can do anything." So even anyone could buy that shirt, right? We all have a brain. So,
Hmm.
we like to create merchandise that is, anyone can buy, So,
I like that. If
uh,
someone were to,
pardon?
because I know a few people who are going on this journey of starting their own brand and creating shirts for epilepsy, what would be a tip you would give them on how to make that possible?
The first thing I would do is I would tell the person to ask themselves, why are they doing this? Are they doing this for profit, or are they doing this to help create epilepsy awareness and to help the epilepsy community? I mean, it's a free country. We're allowed to make money, of course, but I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, you're going to get
Hmm.
people to help you. Like, I met you because of this. I think
Hmm.
from the shop and
Yeah.
from doing social media awareness and whatnot with epilepsy. But I mean, I partner with people that are doing things about creating awareness. So I would just say the advice I would give is hopefully partner up with an epilepsy organization, and do it for the right reasons. I mean, anyone can basically, you can go online and you can Google how to create a Shopify website. That will take a couple minutes. That's easy. But I think the harder part, and that is an everyday struggle, is creating those partnerships and working with the right people and doing it for the right reasons. So that's
Yeah.
why I
I think,
appreciate the opportunity working with you, and you know even you creating awareness for the shop and what you do every day for us, and awareness.
yeah, I think that's really the most important um, part of it. of anything you do is doing it for the right reasons, because that's what I tell people about posting on social media is, why are you doing it? And post something that you would want to see on an epilepsy page. So if that's something that you would want to see, you can relate to it, then there's other people out there that will be able to do it too. They'll be able to relate to it.
Yeah.
If someone were to want to like volunteer for epilepsy organization, get more involved in the epilepsy community, what do you think is the best way to go about doing that?
I love that question. The best, I would always encourage them to see if there's an epilepsy organization in their area, their backyard, because then just geography wise, it's just easier, you know. But now with everything, a lot of things now being virtual, sometimes it doesn't even matter, you know, what organization they reach out to. But I mean, just depending on where they are, I would start with if there's an epilepsy organization in their area, and if there isn't, just reach out to either the Epilepsy Foundation in the U.S. or Canadian Epilepsy Alliance in Canada. But there's multiple agencies. I would say reach out to an agency to see with that and to see how they can help, whether it be writing out their epilepsy story, whether it be reaching out to podcasts like yours, where you're sharing your story, or there's many ways to help, you know, whether it be creating a fundraising page or donating to an epilepsy organization. But what I always tell people is it doesn't, as much as epilepsy organizations appreciate fundraising efforts, it could be just simply wearing a shirt. It could be writing out your story. It could be, you know, liking a post that you do on your social media. Like, the biggest thing I feel is just having people write out their story, sharing their story, or, you know, helping correct myths out there. As you touched on earlier, it's impossible to swallow your tongue. You do not put something in someone's mouth. Like I say this, I think people laugh at me. I say, I challenge you right now to try to swallow your tongue.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot swallow your tongue. Can you bite your tongue? Sure. But it's impossible to swallow your tongue. You do not put something in someone's mouth. So to answer your question, even if it's to spend time going on social media, the correct myths, that's helpful, you know?
Yeah, nothing is too small to bring awareness, you know. Any little thing will help. And I actually started, before I started social media, I actually submitted a story to the Epilepsy Foundation, and they posted it during March for the epilepsy walk that they were going to do here in close to LA. So I started off doing little things like that. I started off with sharing posts that I would see on Instagram. I didn't start with all this. This is more of a newer side to my journey, but yeah, any little thing will help.
But let me ask you, when you were writing out that story, how did it feel? How did it feel writing your story? Did you probably have 1,000,005 emotions doing that?
It was very, very emotional because it brought me back to my first seizure and how I got diagnosed and everything. But it was also very freeing because I was able to take all those emotions and put it towards something more productive instead of just having them sit in my heart and my mind. And you know, it was a very freeing experience to be able to share with others what I went through.
And that's exactly why I encourage. I mean, I don't put pressure on it. I don't rush someone if they're not ready to tell that story.
Yeah.
But just hearing what you just shared, I mean, that's exactly why I do invite individuals to share their story, because it just gives you that, it just gives, you just feel it's like a very spiritual experience, I would say. And then you can, and then when people want to ask your story, of course you can tell the audio version of that story, but sometimes it's even a bit of a relief to say, hey, go on this website to read my story. So then it doesn't, so sometimes you can take a bit of a break from telling the story all the time. You can say, check out my story, it's on this link. And when people are reading your story, it might inspire them to share their story, because that's what's happening here. I've been working with many of our clients and saying, hey, would you like to write out your story? Would you like to have me interview you and tell your 5-minute version of your story? And at first they're hesitant, but once they tell it, they feel like a weight off their shoulders.
You know what I really thought when I was writing down my story too? I was kind of worried about it, because I was like, what if it's just a story, like no one cares. So I think also people might have that in their head, but your story can help anyone. It can help so many people. It can help a certain individual that is going through what you're going through. And if anyone ever wants to come on my podcast and tell their story, they are more than welcome to come. All they have to do is ask. Instagram is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me, because I'm always on Instagram. So you can DM me. I'm more than happy to allow people to tell their stories, and you never know whose heart you can reach.
And I would say too, don't feel pressure that it has to be like a novel, like I've read epilepsy stories that are 1 paragraph, and I've read stories that are 100 paragraphs. However you want to tell your story, whether it be writing it down or, putting yourself, hitting record on your phone or your iPad, however you share your story is how you share your story. And there's no right or wrong of how to share it. And just know that when you're sharing your story, it's going to inspire somebody else, and it's going to bring attention to something that isn't getting spoken about enough, so that's exciting to watch, that even again what you're doing with your social media platforms, with this podcast that you're doing, like it's so awesome to watch this, because the hair on my arms are sticking up, giving me goosebumps, because you're helping create awareness on something that needs to be spoken about. We always hear about other conditions a lot, and those are just as important. But epilepsy is just one of those conditions that just for whatever reason just doesn't get spoken about a lot, and that needs to change.
Yeah, we definitely I think we're getting there, because it's a lot more now than it was when I was growing up. I didn't know anyone that had epilepsy, but now I have a whole support team behind me that also share their stories, and I'm gonna have someone soon to share their story as well. So yeah, it doesn't have to be like everyone else's, like you were saying. Like, my first episode is how I got diagnosed with epilepsy and why I started the podcast. It's probably one of my shortest episodes to this day, and it's probably going to remain like that. It doesn't have to be some elaborate novel, like you were saying. Our story is unique to each person, and you just got to speak your truth.
And one thing I'll say to everyone is, there's Epilepsy Awareness Month here in November in the USA. There's Epilepsy Awareness Month in Canada during the month of March. Purple Day is on March 26th, which is a date that the whole world comes together to talk about epilepsy. There's an International Epilepsy Day in February. But as I say, there might be multiple dates and different dates, and it might even be a little confusing for the average person. But just know that epilepsy should be spoken about every day, not just during a specific month. But just to know that regardless of the country you're in, regardless of the date, it's important to talk about epilepsy as much as possible. And you have no idea how much you're helping somebody by talking about it.
Exactly. And I could always create a post for all those days, so we can have a reminder and stuff, and then continue to talk about epilepsy every single day as well. So even just sharing, like you come across an epilepsy post, even just sharing that, you're talking about epilepsy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great, and that's why I think it's really great what you're doing. Your social media posts are always great, and what I like about your social media is that it's accurate, it's correct, and it's positive, and it's inspiring, and so. And what actually segues even back to the shop is that we have shirts that say "Screw Epilepsy," but we also have shirts that say "I love somebody with epilepsy," and "I'm a purple warrior." So, because there's some days where you feel like, you know what, screw epilepsy. But then there's other days where you're like, you know what, I have epilepsy, but it doesn't define who I am. It doesn't stop me from what I want to do today. So, we have shirts for all feelings, so.
Yes. Yes, you guys really thought about it when you were creating your shirts. I did see that, and I have another shirt, the purple one that says "Dear Epilepsy." Oh,
Yes.
that one gets me emotional.
And yes, and I appreciate that you brought that shirt up, because that's actually one of our top sellers, because people want to say literally it's a letter to epilepsy, and
Yeah.
so it's literally, I feel you have your Screw Epilepsy camp, and then you have your Dear Epilepsy camp, and then you have your Purple Warrior camp, and then of course you have your supporters that say I love somebody that has epilepsy. So we make sure that we have a shirt for all types of feelings, because not everyone has that feeling of screw epilepsy.
Oh, I did. I did. So I definitely get when you're feeling like that, and it honestly comes and goes. Just depends on the day, really. Like, and your shirts, the fact that you thought about everything that, when you have that a screw epilepsy feeling, or you just as simple like as the purple ribbon like my shirt has, you guys really thought about everything. I love that.
And we should come up with a contest to give out a shirt, maybe for a future episode, if you ever want to do that. So I mean, just I can't think of the contest now, but just to know, put it on our to-do list that if we ever connect again for a future episode, that we could do a contest to give out a shirt to one of your viewers.
That would be amazing. I'm sure everyone would appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Problem. So yeah, no, I really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you for drawing attention to a shop. Um, but more importantly, the petition, and again, even more and more importantly, just creating epilepsy awareness. Like what you're doing for this epilepsy community is, I can't put enough words to that. It's really, really, really amazing to see what you're doing. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. And I'll have all his links down below. I'll also have the petition down below, and a link to the Marcus Charles story. I'll have everything linked in the description box so you guys can check all that out. Definitely go follow him on the Epilepsy Shop. Follow the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance. They're an amazing organization. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for what you do.
All right, I'll see you later.